I'm Lisa Hasty, General Manager here at Albury Business Connect, and I'd like to introduce the team. Those that come regularly will feel like this is a pretty standard process. We start over here on the left with Tamisha Smith, Events and Administration. She does a great role pulling all of this together. Thank you, Tanisha. No. On your way in, if you haven't already met Rhiannon, she is now in a member engagement role and also looks after our communication. So all the emails and newsletters that go out that look like they're short and sharp, Rhiannon puts a lot of work into making them fantastic. So we love that. Thank you, Reed. And Chloe Hall. There's Chloe. Let's go there. Chloe is studying at Charles Sturt University in business, and she's doing her work placement with us. And we're looking forward to putting her on as a casual employee over her uni break over summer, which is great. So thank you, Chloe. There's an agenda item here for housekeeping emergency exits, which I've never told anyone about. The way you came in to get out, or we can smash through this banner here and jump out that way and talk to down the end on the left. So remember that. There we go. From Albury City, I'd like to welcome Councillor Blackett. And we have Ange Larkin in Economic Development and Glenn D'Souza and Danielle as well. So thank you all for coming along. These guys all make themselves very available. So if you've got any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to bring to council's attention, they're here and willing to chat. So make the most of that. So I stopped talking for a little bit. I'll let our board members introduce themselves, and we'll start right here.
Morning, everyone. I'm Celeste Pierce. I'm with Business Edge Advisors. I'm actually finishing up my term shortly, and I wish all the best to all the new board members that get elected. Thank you. You've been great.
I'm Barry, current chair of all the Business Connect and all the CBD. I'm also moving on, so again, the new board. All the best.
I'm Simone, having stayed down the hall, and also on board. I'm one of the very few remaining board members.
Out with the old with the new. Yeah, we're looking forward to the new batch. We'll find out this Friday how the nominations and voting has gone, and we'll announce our new board members at the AGM on the 28th of October. We'd like to acknowledge our sponsors as well. They are huge supporters of the business community, and we can't do what we do without them. For anyone who usually comes along, what is a review issue since our last slide was updated, so it's great to have them on board. If anyone is interested in understanding more about the sponsorship opportunities, you can either get in touch with myself or Rhiannon. So thank you. And the sponsors we've got in the room, I'll just get you to put your hands up so that people know who you are. Introduce yourself.
Clayton from Business Advisors.
Thank you, Clayton.
Kelly from HRM.
We've got a big crew on right, also presenting. So thank you to all of our sponsors. We do have a little bit of time to introduce ourselves around the room. So we're going to start over here. Chloe has introduced herself and Barry. So we've got Daniel.
Morning, Daniel Tyke from Living Edge Data Centres. We built a data centre out by the airport, big white and blue. I should be using my inside voice. Any questions you got about what you want to do with data, how that might affect the industries around town, the business around town? I'm happy to have a chat.
I'll just add there that at our AGM we have the CEO Chris Thorpe talking about leading edge and also the opportunity that provides for the businesses, which is really exciting. Gladys, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Gladys from Board Trust, the Community Foundation for the Woodonga region.
Michael Solder, also Board Trust.
Well, I'm Ashley Baker from the HR lead at Total HRM.
I'm Tom. I'm one of the speakers today. I'm also from Total HRM, and I'm the training lead.
Kelly,
Mel from Starfish Marketing, making your marketing happen. And the Star, your private workspace for hire.
I'm Mel from Lawrence and Electrical, and I'm going to be getting up the code snap straight after putting the his work sponsorship up there for what it's also do a lot of other things in the community, lots of events and community engagement with councils, like that. So today. Thanks, Brandon.
My name's Di Glover. I'm the CEO at Yes Unlimited. We provide a range of homelessness and domestic violence services. And I'm here to talk to you about some of that.
Kevin Baskin from Enterprise Plus. We deliver a program for the New South Wales Government called Business Connect. That's all about helping business flourish. It's fully funded.
Thanks, Kevin.
Excuse me. Nicholas Biddle. I've been a member since about 2007. Formerly owned Beacon Lighting with Alice, but had a long-standing naval background. And this seemed a good sort of thing to come on to, so I put my hand up to try and see if people find me attractive enough to join board.
And we have Richard.
Yeah, I'm Richard Brown. I'm from Step Psychology. Just trying not to get nervous.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to invite Tom up now from Total HRM, who's going to speak about a pretty timely topic about retaining and attracting talent, and I guess giving us some insight to what job seekers are looking for currently. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you for that. So as Lisa said, very timely topic. I'm sure that this is something that all businesses are going through with how we're best to attract and retain talent. And I do want to start in a moment just talking about the current employment market. But before we get there, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and Total HRM. So I'm Tom, recently moved down from Alice Springs. I was up there for about 6.5 years, working in recruitment for a number of years, and then working as HR manager for one of the local councils. As well as that, I wanted to tell you about my team, not my team, our team. Two of my colleagues are here today. So Total HRM, we are a local HR outsourcing service, and we do provide a range of services. I mentioned my job is training lead. So we do provide in-house training for businesses. We do offer public workshops, and we can do tailored training as well. We've recently just built a brand new training space. So if anyone's interested to see what that looks like, let us know and we can show you. As well as training, we do offer work health and safety, workplace investigation, recruitment services, just to name a few. So, as I mentioned, a topic that's hot on everyone's lips is the current employment market. I don't think I need to go into this too much to let you all know that it's challenging, but I did want to give you a couple of points just to let you know how much of a challenge it actually is. Starting with the markets favouring the job seeker, not the employer, and I think most of us can attest to that. But what does that mean? Well, the National Skills Commission has recently done a survey and found that in August 2022, 74% of recruiting employees had difficulty recruiting, and that's the second highest rating of all time. Further to that, the Australian government recently released data saying that the number of positions that have an identified skill shortage have gone from 150 up to 258 in a year's time. So that's quite significant. Also, what job seekers are looking for has changed. So recent surveys from SEEK has shown that 65% of employees are saying that what was important to them when they were looking for jobs before the pandemic is different now. So traditionally, we would think that that would be job security or a salary, where probably like many of you here, we've had a taste of flexibility in the workplace, working from home, and that is showing that that's quickly becoming the priority that job seekers are looking for. So in a recent survey by SEEK, 65% of people are saying what matters to them now is work-life balance. Very different from the traditional job security and salary and compensation. I just wanted to share a quote as well before we start talking about strategies to attract and retain. And the quote is, "Nothing we do is more important than hiring and developing people. At the end of the day, you bet on people, not on strategies. You can have all the strategies in the world, but you've got to have the right people in place to deliver on that." So, what's your employee value proposition? Does anyone here have an employee value proposition? Yeah, you do. That's good. Anyone else? No. Has anyone heard of an employee value proposition?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I won't go into it too much, but for those who don't know, essentially an employee value proposition is your unique identifying factors that contrast you to your competitors. So really your marketing pitch. This is what makes you stand out from your competitors. Why are they important? Well, EVPs can actually improve new hire commitment by 30% and can reduce employee turnover by 70% annually. And the way that's done is having your current employees involved in it, giving them a chance to give you feedback as well about what's important to them. And the things that you need to consider when you're making an EVP is benchmarking your salaries against your competitors, the non-monetary benefits that you offer, what's the company culture, and don't feel like you have to sell the company culture for something it's not. Sell it for exactly what it is. And how you recognize and reward your employees. So I just want to take 10 seconds, see if everyone can have a bit of a think about what's their EVP for your organization, what makes your organization different. Does anyone want to share?
So flexibility, innovation, and I think like a lot of input, being able to like determine the journey that the business.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And did you have something? So really, if you started to formalize your EVP around that, you're creating part of a marketing strategy to attract and retain talent to your organization. Yeah. So that's our starting point. Know what you're selling. And then advertising effectively. I hate looking at slides that have a bunch of text, but I've done it intentionally today. I've got two different advertisements here. The one on the red is what not to do, and I'll start there. So this is the traditional way that we advertise. And you can see that the wording is really around, you will be required, you have the ability. It's really about the demands of the job. And that's what we would go for. And there's probably not too much that's different here that the employee couldn't get from reading a job description. Contemporary advertising should be more about the employee. So let's start advertising to them and giving them something that they want. And you can see the language over here is really about them as an individual. So a day in the life of your new role, you will have the opportunity. It's really being a bit conversational and selling the role to the employee. In saying that, one thing I will add is don't sell the role for something it's not. We need to be realistic with what it is. I just want to summarize some points here. So write to the person, don't write about them. Use your EVP and your company culture. Create realistic perceptions. And one thing I didn't have is make sure you include images. It's a way to get that engagement and that visual concept behind what you're saying with your words. Images, videos, an easy way to start advertising positions. So we've done a little bit on attraction. Now we want to talk about retaining the talent that you're getting. Does anyone have an idea of how much it costs to replace a staff member? Shout out your answers if anyone would like.
Half an annual salary.
Wow.
Yeah, does anyone have something different?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. You're quite close. So in terms of percentages, it's apparently 30 to 40%, but in monetary value in 2021, so this would have gone up. It was the most recent data I could find. Replacing a worker is $23,860. So you've got to consider their time to hire, involvement in the recruitment process, and your advertising costs, just to name a few things. So it's quite substantial. As well as that, and this actually shocked me, and I don't know why it did, because but how many employees do not stay with their employer for more than 6 months? So they've moved to a new job. How many leave before 6 months?
50%.
Close. Around 40%. That's significant. And a lot of what that comes down to is misalignment between the expectations of the role and the employee's perception. I wanted to highlight that because they're the things that we need to start thinking about when we talk about the importance of retaining talent.
I think a lot of the electrical stuff at the moment, the attitude with employers at the moment is if they can keep someone for 6 months, they're happy. Like,
Yeah.
that much of a market.
Yeah,
for them.
definitely.
It was a shocking job.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not that.
Yeah, and it comes back to when we're doing some recruitment work, that people are saying, oh, you know, this might be a better hire because we're more likely to get 10 years out of them, whereas this one we know we're only going to get 3. And we say,
Yeah.
that one is better and they're going to give you 3 years, just go with the better choice
Yeah.
here and now, because there's no guarantee you're going to get 10 years out of anyone.
That's right. Yeah, the market's moving very quickly. Yeah.
We sprint that far ahead.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it starts with onboarding. Onboarding is one of the main factors that employees give when they leave their employment before 6 months. They say that they haven't been onboarded successfully. So how do you onboard successfully? We'll start by giving clear expectations of the role. Go over the job description with the person and meet with them and give them some tangible measures as to what's expected of their performance. Maintain contact over the transition period. And what I mean by this is when you start, when you're ending employment with one employer and starting with a new one, by maintaining contact, either email or phone over that period, you're really building a sense of trust and relationship with that employee before they commence. And Kelly is a perfect example of that. Before I moved down from Alice Springs, I was on the phone to her probably 50 times. So have a structured onboarding process, have a plan in place, something that you can give to them and they can refer to. And continue to provide feedback and support. And I'll come back to the importance of feedback in a while. Ensure that the new hire knows key personnel in your organisation as well. So make sure they're introduced to all the people that they'll be working with. Give them a copy of an org chart so they've got a quick reference. Because everyone knows when you showed around the office on your first day, you're not going to remember everyone's names. After onboarding or during the onboarding process and continuing past that 6-month period, focus on employee engagement. So start to learn about what is motivating the employee. Motivation is a key contributor to employee well-being. And some of the things that happen if you don't get motivation right, you could be causing bad moods for the employee, declining mental health, reduced productivity and quality of work. And 70% of job seekers or employees through Seek research have said they actually won't leave their employer if they feel engaged at work. So it's really important that you start to find what motivates them and engage them in that. Involving the employee in decisions that will affect them, give them ownership as well. And they'll be more likely to continue to be engaged if they're participating in that decision making. And consider how your team interact together. I don't know, how many people use personality testing at all in their workplace? Yeah, Kelly, that's good. Has anyone heard of DISC?
Yeah.
This is, I swear by DISC after doing my certification in it. So DISC is a perfect example of where an individual can get insight into themselves, into their personalities and traits in the workplace, but also, and I was just mentioning before, it's an easy tool that you can use to compare against your colleagues. So there's a bunch of ways that you can get reports that give you individual tips on working with your colleagues, insight to their values and their working styles as well. So really it's bridging a gap between those employees where possible. And that, you know, in a normal workplace could take months of small talk to try and work out individual styles. So my next tip is build an employee profile. This is my colleague. She's probably not going to be too happy I've done this, but she's got me no tell her. But in a workplace where we've got a lot of hybrid working from home and office scenarios, we've got different styles and different schedules as well. Build an employee profile as a quick reference to get colleagues to connect. And here you can see we've got DISC summary, work patterns, how people thrive, what your strengths are and what people can go to you for. And again, it's just building that connection between colleagues in a much quicker way. Continuous development. So everyone wants to continuously develop and grow in their roles. I think we can all attest to that. The one key point I'll say with this is don't wait for annual reviews. And most of us know now that annual reviews should not be your only point for feedback. But Gartner has recently done research and found that no practice other than ongoing feedback has been successful in building employee or developing employees. So it is quite substantial. That being said, make sure you're having regular formal and informal feedbacks throughout the year. And use your annual reviews, not saying don't have them, but use them to summarize the performance over the year. Consider options to develop the employee. So I wanted to highlight here, we often go to external courses or university qualifications as a way to develop an employee. And in fact, you can do them in your own organization. So some of the options are higher duties, cross-training an employee in an area of interest, and finding a mentor. Mentors are invaluable. So I wanted to highlight that as well. And that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
You talked about the number of people moving and the fact that there's fewer people in the market, and it's employees rather than employers market. Where have all these people gone? It cannot be, it simply cannot be that they cut off the number of people being able to come over short work-term visas.
Yeah.
Because some of them stayed.
Yeah, it's a great question.
And every area of employment is down. So where have all these people gone?
2 points I'll add to that. I think that's a really good question. I don't know the answer fully, but I think that we spoke about people aren't staying in employment long. So maybe there's the constant movement, which makes it a challenge. And in fact, prior to the pandemic, the statistics were showing that Australia needed 5 million workers by 2025 to keep up with the labour demands. So we aren't actually getting an influx of employees at all. That number isn't growing and people are transitioning. So I think between a combination of those two things, the market feels short and like it's shrunk.
We're also an ageing population, so there's more people
That's
moving
right.
out of employment as well.
Yeah, and we've probably heard of the Great Resignation. So the Great Resignation was a term that people were expecting at the start of the pandemic, where multitudes of people would say, I'm done working now, I don't need to, I've had my time. It didn't happen as drastically as what they thought, but we are seeing, and particularly toward the end of this year, people are starting to move out of the full-time work arrangements as well.
Does the rise in remote working play into it? Because before you were just kind of restricted to your geographic area, but now, we can live here in Albury and work anywhere. So there's much more competition.
Yeah, maybe.
I think particularly with, we're seeing hospitality, there's so many shortages in cafes and pubs and places like that. If you think about uni students that used to all just have to work in cafes and pubs around their uni hours, now they can go and they could get a regular, job, whatever that might be that they're trying to do after uni, and they can do that around their uni hours. And a lot of them are also doing uni remotely. So that's actually, we've got, an employee with us who's working full time, and she's doing uni, her lectures are at 6 o'clock at night, or she just catches up and watches them online or whatever. They're not attending permanently, so they're not then going and getting those after hours jobs. So there's the remote work has also changed in remote learning, which is their challenges for jobs.
And it's interesting too, sorry.
Don't go.
I was just going to say, people in the city areas are saying that people are moving out to regional areas. This Albury-Wodonga area in particular was apparently one of the largest growth areas, and you would probably know better than me. But it's interesting to hear that even here in what's a growth area, there are so many challenges with finding the right people.
Do you think with rising interest rates and cost of living that some of that focus from work-life balance will shift to salary and job security? Yeah,
I would say so. I think that job security will become probably more significant in the next, say, 6 months to 12 months. I think that we're all probably at a point where we're questioning our choices because there's a lot of uncertainty with the economic market as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. That was great. A heap of tips and ideas in just sort of 10 minutes. And I would assume that Total HRM do that disc profiling if people are interested in understanding their people better. So you can get in touch with any of the team if that's something of interest. I'd like to now welcome Richard. Part of our employee retention, I think, is creating an environment that I guess allows people to feel psychologically well, and it's Mental Health Month at the moment. So we thought it was really great timing to invite Richard along to just share some practical ideas on what we can be doing in the workplace to look after our people. Yeah.
Right, so try and be nice and punchy and quick. I think 10 or 15 minutes is a great idea. This is basically what I'm going to talk about. How we can contribute to staff wellbeing, which potentially increases morale and productivity, by the way, as you all know. And ultimately, this can contribute to us keeping staff. I put Einstein on the side there because a lot of what I'm going to cover isn't rocket science. Actually, it's kind of common sense stuff. And I like to talk about things that are practical and doable, not necessarily involving lots of money. So promote health and well-being, and a bit of a subtle joke on my behalf there. Don't just use alcohol for this.
Red wine's good for you.
Well, tell me if you think that's all right. So just a couple of things here. You know, our physical health and our mental health are very much joined. And so basically, you know, whatever we can do to promote any forms of looking after yourself, the better. And so one of my points here is to be working on that alone. A couple of ways we can do that: spread health and wellbeing information. So these days particularly, there seems to be 101 different sort of special days of the year. And so we can pick some of those to raise awareness through our organisations. Not hard to do. Just in a word or two, what are the special days that you can think of that come up?
Right to work day.
Right to work day? Yeah.
Are you okay?
Are you okay, Dave?
Very, very blind day.
So there's lots of yeah. All right. The second point I'm putting up there is a little bit more challenging for some people, and that's just being a bit open about your own health and wellbeing. Now that can range by just letting it be known with people that you're into bike riding or, you know, whatever. But also just being open, if we can, about sort of health issues. Now, in my case, I'm a very, very private person and quite an introvert. And so, you know, I never liked to let anyone know about these sorts of things. But I decided actually about 6 years ago that I'd tell our team at Step Psychology that I suffered from depression. And I've found that it just helped open the doorway a little bit for other people to talk about issues. And if anything, I got kind of a supportive kind of reaction to that. So that's all good. So sometimes we need to challenge ourselves to talk about these sorts of things. You know, we tell our kids to do that, don't we? You know, speak up. You know, if you're feeling depressed, tell me. But how often do we go, oh, I'm feeling really depressed instead? You know? So that's something we can do. Encourage social connection. Social connection and interaction is very important for our health. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a very introverted person. I have a fair need for being on my own, playing in my shed, riding my motorbike, whatever. But all of us are actually social beings, so we need some connection. And a lot of the people that we're employing actually value this in the workplace a lot. So it depends on the individual who's there. How do we do that? We can do something pretty straightforward, like go for morning tea, go for lunch, organise a barbecue. I came up with this idea that our whole team once a month would go out for lunch. And because we don't really make a lot of profit, believe it or not, I sort of thought, oh, we'll just all pay for ourselves. And then my business partner at the first lunch we had announced to everyone that we were paying. So, okay, we're paying. But I've since found that it's actually a fantastic thing to do, even better than I thought it would be. So once a month, yeah, we go out for lunch. And a big thing with that is we don't talk about work. And if I hear anyone talking about work, I sort of inject myself into the conversation and I change the conversation. Because it's meant to be just time to chill out a bit, get to know each other, that sort of thing. Encourage people to get along and support each other. Any ideas how we do that?
Taking note of some significant things that are happening in each other's lives. So like we had a team member that received a really big scouting award. So, you know, we've spoken about it and asked about it and, you know, encouraged it. So
yeah, cool. So spreading good, yeah, good things, good news. Just recently, one of our staff members, her father had a heart attack, and he's actually, unfortunately, been battling cancer as well. And so I said to her, look, do you mind if I let everyone know what's happening? You know, she was going to be away for a few days. So with her permission, I kind of let everyone know that. And there's been this really, really nice show of support from the whole team around her. So things like that. Inject some fun. Initiate a bit of fun yourself. I'm very lucky because I am hilarious. If I do say so myself. How would you initiate just a bit of fun in a normal work day?
I know the girls over at Pyschology they randomly scare each other. I think jump hands, you know, jump hands in and surprise.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing, so it's become an ongoing. Yeah, like a little challenge almost, who gets to scare.
Yeah, I like that one. I can see maybe a downside. Yep.
Last Friday, I bought the Boston bun, and for those people that were in the office, like we chopped up the Boston bun and like sat around this little table and ate it together. And it was just like, it took us 10 minutes and we just like had a little giggle and talked about stuff that was going on. I think it kept all our news up on Friday. We used to be able to have our own, but we can't do that anymore. Boston bun instead.
Yeah. Other ideas?
People love going to the escape room, their team. Maybe love
Great idea, we should all go there.
Having the ability to read the room and see when it is necessary, maybe, but I know my job is coming in and out of work all the time. Sometimes I can walk into a very heavy environment, and so I know to me that's when I lift.
Yeah.
And then everyone else sort of like just make fun of themselves or whatever and circumnavigate what's going on.
Yeah. I like to make fun of myself. That's kind of an easy way. It's better than picking on other people for stuff. But also actually there's been research into this, and people, one of the things that makes people like leaders is when they seem down to earth, real, when they admit their mistakes, that sort of stuff, you know. So I like to joke about my mistakes. I don't make many of them at all. Organise some fun, something in the workplace, an activity off-site, go bowling, go to the escape room. Enter a work team into an event. I haven't done a lot of that, but I've done a little bit of that. And I'm talking about things like, you know, we went into the Big Splash one time, and believe it or not, I have a sewing machine and I use it to make things. And so I made baby costumes for everyone. That was a surprise on the day. And yeah, 3 of them, which is the whole team, because there was only 4 of them. We'll never do it again. Anyway, there's things like that that are a bit of fun, aren't they, to go and do together. And fun and laughter is another thing. You know, it's a big stress reduction thing, you know. Oxygenates our blood. It's actually really good for us on its own. When we get very stressed, we tend to get more and more serious and stoic. So a great thing to think about. Right, look after staff in inventive ways. Can you develop a culture of give and take? Now, this is one thing that I've always tried to do and I found very difficult, to be honest, but it's kind of in my nature that I do things like I never watch when people arrive at work. I never watch how long they take off at lunchtime when they're not got. Some days, you know, if everyone's done early, I just go, right, get out of here, everyone. Sort of thing, you know. Now, yes, over the years I've been taken advantage of, and sometimes that's been sort of challenging to do all of that. But I've found that over time, it's gradually paid dividends in terms of, you know, if something happens and it'd be handy for people to stay back a little bit, everyone just does it. No problem whatsoever. So over time, that's developed nicely in our team. What about letting staff borrow things? This is a simple thing. I've heard lots of examples of this, like there are companies out there that have certain equipment and the staff are allowed to borrow the equipment if they want. You know, they just write it down in the book. We've got an interesting one that happened by chance. We've got someone going in on maternity leave in a couple of weeks, if she makes it that long. And this young lady's husband is studying and working remotely. And so they asked, could he use one of our desks for 3 days a week while she's on mat leave? So, you know, figured out that that works for us. So we've now got that arrangement.
You had a lot of things.
Yeah, well, we can do that too. Or counselling people. He's studying accounting. So. What about little nice surprises occasionally? You think of that. The typical one, and I have trouble thinking of things that are more kind of appropriate now. I tend to think of chocolate. Now I can remember times of one stage I worked in a big place and I bought a whole tub of Lindt at Easter and I went around and gave everyone chocolate. Now we've got people that are lactose free, gluten intolerant, vegan, all sorts of stuff. So that gets hard, but let's try and do a bit of
I know place.
Yes, what place would that be?
Forest. You can get cupcakes, all the things. Yeah. Keep calm, candles, all the things.
Sounds good. Let's do that. So anyway, there's probably lots of things you can think of under that banner. Okay, and the bottom note here, you know, it's about also people feeling valued. You know, that we're thinking of them, they're important, and you know, that's a thread through all of this presentation, really. Oh, I've returned this slide. Ah, there we go. So I had to work Donald into this somewhere, and I thought I'd do it when I'm going to do some shameless self-promotion, since other people have taken that liberty. So another thing you can do, and you don't need to come to us, you know, there are EAP providers out there, we're one of them. So employee assistance programs have been around for quite a long time. They vary a bit, but in principle, an EAP program is something where you have a suite of services. The principal one normally is free counselling for staff. So a company or companies around the area contract us to provide employee assistance programs. And so employees and sometimes their family members as well have access to, you know, between 3 and 6 of these free sessions per calendar year. Sometimes companies are good enough too to say, look, if there's a really specific need, we'll extend that. So counselling is part of an EAP program normally. And then there are other things as well, like we've done health check days. And we've arranged them that are not just mental health, but we've done them in partnership with a physiotherapist and people that can look at food and diet and all that sort of stuff. We also provide workshops on various things and a host of other things. There are big companies, in fact, there's international companies that provide EAP services on a big scale. And what they typically do is they'll, get large contracts and they'll subcontract to individual counsellors in an area like this. In our case, we're different. We've got 12 psychologists in our clinic and we provide EAP programs in our own right. And what that means is that we have control to say that, if there's an emergency situation, we can pull out all the stops and instantly respond to that. All of our people have degrees and postgraduate qualifications in psychology. 3 of them also have degrees in social work. So we have good quality people. And what we're about is the quality of the actual service. We're not necessarily the best at doing colourful quarterly reports and graphs and that sort of stuff. But that's what we're about. And so in our case, we're going to suit a certain type of organisation. We won't suit everyone. So that's that part done. And I think I can wrap it up. Does anyone have any questions or? We've got an important talk coming.
Maybe a question for Kev. Is there funding available for EAP through network software?
No, there's not. The principal funding for us is training and one-on-one sessions with clients. We could engage people to with group programs, for example. There might be an opportunity for us to do that.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any other questions?
I had one that I forgot it.
I want to note though with an EAP, there's no ongoing cost, is there? You set up the program and it's when your team use some of the sessions, that's when you begin to pay. Is that correct?
That's the way we work. So it's just a fee for service model that we do. It's pretty simple. Some places do charge like a flat per year cost. But that tends to be the bigger part.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, appreciate that. And I was unaware that you were getting sponsored by Skate Room and the Real Time. I'd like to now invite Dive Lover, yes, I'm in it now, to talk about Betty's Place, which, if you're lucky enough not to have heard of it, it means you're completely unaware of the challenges that surround women with family and domestic violence, which is the stats when I read a report were remarkable. So we thought we'd invite them along today so that we can learn a little bit more about what they're doing in our community. Thanks, Dori.
I run a bit of a mission at Coelli-Donaghy, and that's about improving the quality and quantity of accommodation, crisis accommodation for women and children escaping violence. Before I get into it, I'll just tell you a little bit about us and what we do. Again, you may never have heard of us unless you've had a need for our services, which is really good. Our big, hairy, audacious goal, as we call it, is future generations without homelessness by 2050. So we're about making sure that homelessness is not an issue in our community, and it's perfectly solvable if there were the will to do it. But I'll get onto that another day. So basically, we're a specialist homeless service. We provide a centralised intake and assessment. point for anyone that is at risk of becoming homeless, and there's a lot of people at the moment that are in that boat, or those who are currently experiencing homelessness. We've run Rotten House Youth Refuge since our inception back in 1983, and we also run Betty's Place Women's Refuge, which I'm going to talk to you about today. A range of preventive programs and early intervention programs, which is really, really nice to be working in that space. So we run a program called Sustaining Tenancies in Social Housing, and it's about working with people in top housing before they get to the point of being evicted to maintain their tenancy, because once that social housing property is gone, there's not a lot of options left. So the other really exciting early intervention program is, you might have read about in the news last week, is the Albury project, where we work with all the public high schools in Albury, and we screen every student in every year level for indicators of risk of homelessness, risk of mental health issues, risk of disengagement from school, and we then can devise interventions and work with that young person and family. So great results. We also work with people that have experienced long-term homelessness as well through a housing first model. So that's around taking people that may have slept on the streets, you know, over many, many years. We don't see them right in and out of refuges, that sort of thing. Give them a house, subsidised housing property, and then pack the support around them. Some many incredible outcomes can happen when you put in that intensive work. Domestic and family violence services, so staying home, leaving violence, again, giving women the option to stay in their own home and perpetrator leaves. We're putting lots of safety planning, lots of security if need be, whatever it is that family needs. We're also driving a local systems change in our DV sector. What we've noticed over the years is that each individual service, we're usually funded by a different government department, by the way, is responsible for doing this part of the DV response or this part of this one. But very rarely is there any sort of system plan, if you like, or a system perspective on that. It's up to us to join nicely together to make it work. And quite often that doesn't happen. It's very personality driven rather than being built into the system. And we're very strategically co-located in the hub in Macaulay Street with the Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy and Support Service. By the bar, we also run the Hyde Youth Resource Centre, which is located out in Lavington, where the old land library is. Great location out there. And that provides young people with somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to talk to. And we also invest in things like youth leadership and investing in developing their talents and their assets through that as well. So that's what we do. Why do we need to improve accommodation and crisis accommodation for women? And here's the cold hard facts. So, yes, in 2021, 404 incidents responded to by police just in the Albury LGA, which ranks Albury 22nd highest out of 128 New South Wales LGAs. Last financial year alone, we assisted 258 women experiencing domestic and family violence. And we know across the state, women and children experiencing DV make up approximately half of all clients seeking support from homelessness services. They're the common hard facts. What I can tell you on top of this as well is with the current housing crisis at the moment, we know women are telling us that they are not able to leave because they've got nowhere to go. The options available to them, if they can get a bed at the Women's Refuge, is one. The other is crisis or emergency accommodation in hotel accommodation, which is very unsuitable for families, often no cooking facilities. You know, we had a woman say to us, I would not have left in had I known that my children would be sent in the car. So pretty dire situation. That's why we need it. So Betty's Place been around for a bloody long time. I was 50 before we So established in the 1970s and was named after a remarkable woman called Betty McLean, who Betty and her husband, Colonel Bob McLean, actually started the first refuge per se, in that they would help women and take them into their own home until they were able to lobby to get the resources needed. It's a large central home, really nestled in a residential area, beautiful old building, quite old, 1930s it was completed. Our capacity is up to 5 women and their children in what's known as a communal or shared living environment. So within that, we've got 2 family suites under the main house roof, which includes pretty much bedroom, a little bit of a living area, and an ensuite in the shower, no bath. 2 single rooms for single women under the main roof, and then we have a fully self-contained unit at the back of the house, which is a 2-bedroom unit for large families. We know from that we can see how women and families are travelling when they're in the house, living in a community environment compared to someone who's out in the unit out the back, and there's a little bit more space to be able to bring up a family. So as I say, shared bathrooms, kitchen, lounge room, and laundry facilities, and we also have office space at the house as well. So you can just imagine what it would be like staying in it for adults who come out of a traumatic situation to be all living under the same roof. Throw in there something like, you know, a cultural element as well. You know, we have I said, an Asian woman that like to cook wonderful food at 10 o'clock at night, but not possible in this situation. We had a young woman that was studying for her HSC, who found it really difficult with the other lady in the house, and she's got kids running out everywhere. So it is really not good. So some of the challenges, you know, it's an old building, the maintenance costs, I think we're up about $20,000 a year just to maintain it. We've got failing electricity, plumbing, that kind of thing. Of course, as I've spoken about, very limited capacity to provide good accommodation. And the communal model is just so far outdated. It's, you know, I think it served its purpose. And certainly pay tribute to Betty and Colonel Bob, but it's way past its use by date in terms of the way it's now. There is a lack of privacy and dignity. There's definitely a lack of choice in terms of where you'd like to stay within that, if you can get a bed in that place. It can be a really chaotic environment at times as well when you've got your children. We've got parenting in front of other parents is often really difficult. You know, it's like, no, you can't smack that person's child. That's not it. We're not going to do that. Like, you know, it's just very difficult. And feeling really exposed when you're at the most vulnerable. I think that the hardest thing is that sort of lack of normality in the family unit of sort of routine and safety. You know, and often it's a bit of a perception that mum also loses her sense of authority as a parent when you come into somewhere like a women's refuge, where you have to follow certain rules. And the staff will sort of become that authority, which is a really unnatural, awful situation. So what we're looking for is what's known as a core and cluster model of women's refuge accommodation. So it's a more modern, flexible approach. And it's about several independent units on the same block, which is, the units are called the cluster, and on the same block, a multi-purpose space, which is the core, which can include things like staff offices, meeting rooms, and sort of communal facilities, like, for example, you know, communal kitchens and lounge spaces where people can study, quiet spaces like prayer rooms and healing spaces. Usually very centrally located with very high quality security and a range of services on site. So we have services coming in rather than we having to go out. So centrally, for example, you come in and help them to get on income support, you know, legal aid, things like this. Here's what it could look like. So I get a bit of an idea here. This is very, very draft and it will change. It will look nothing like this. But of course, you've got the cluster of the units here, and then the core being the main sort of staffing shared facility area. And the idea is that the way the units are designed is that they can be opened up. So you can, for example, have a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom open up into a 3-bedroom property. Or 2 and a 2 open up into a 4-bedroom property. So try to get as much flexibility out of the unit spaces as we can to accommodate different size families. Right. Here's where we're up to in our quest. There's government funding on the table. The Dominic Carrotay, becoming Premier of New South Wales, announced $464 million worth of investment into Coelli-Donaghy refuges. we have been working on it for some time, so when this funding landed, it was both a blessing and, you know, a bit of a disappointment as well, because with any sort of funding, it's got to sort of hit this box. We're living quite differently, but we're happy to try to hit this box and we get what we need. So we went into partnership with an organisation, community housing organisation called Housing Plus. Housing Plus are very active, based in Orange, I believe. And they're now up to building their, I think, fourth or fifth first built Coelli-Donaghy women's refuge. So they've got a lot of experience in this space, which we're hoping to tap into. We've also got some expert design advice. We've got I don't know what the title is. Design expert that works at UTS in Sydney. She is doing a PhD at the moment and has offered to support us through our design process on a pro bono basis as part of that work. So we're really lucky to have her on board. Samantha Dunley's in that she wrote the design principles for women's refuges. We have a central Albury site secured, pending the funding. And we are in the process of tendering for that this opportunity at the moment. It closes next week, so we're very, very busy. We've got through the first round, which is really exciting. As part of that, we have undertaken a community, we're still undertaking a community consultation to talk to, so we've met with people like the Safety Action Leading Group, which is, you know, headed up by police, education, child protection, all of the DV services that will come together to meet and how to address safety risks. So we took it to that, took the designs to that group and said what we need to include, what we need to be thinking about. Got some amazing feedback. We also took it to a group of elephants, group of cold funds as well, which was amazing in terms of the feedback they gave, in terms of what they'd like to see, and the women's yarning circle as well, the actual yarning circle. So, we are hoping to launch a campaign sooner rather than later, and our intent is to raise $1 million. We believe that the funding available to the government will cover the cost of building a cooling cluster, but it won't extend to things like the fit out and the therapeutic feel of the space we're trying to create. So the environment is just important to be able to have that landscaping, that nurturing environment that can really enhance a person's opportunity to move forward in life. We're also looking very forward to formalising a partnership with Board Trust in the form of a named sub-fund. And the idea here is that it will give the community an extra layer of confidence, I guess, if that money is put to a third party, that, you know, this is being accounted for properly. It also gives us that assurance as well, because we're not particularly, we don't run fundraising campaigns. It's not what we do. We provide services to homeless people. So we really have that expertise. So really looking forward to progressing that. And we've got a lot of support through the Board of Mail in terms of wanting to run the campaign with us, cover the media side of the campaign with us. So I think what if your members do Jet Torrance did an amazing sort of kick-off story in support of the campaign, and there'll be a series of those stories continuing over the period. We're not quite at the point of kicking off the fundraising campaign until we finalise the details for the Board of Trust, and that's kind of where we're up to. So I guess how can people help? How can people get involved? I think what's really important, what we don't want to lose in all of this, is the fact that Betty's Place was created for this community by this community, and there's been a huge amount of ownership from Coelli-Donaghy of Betty's Place over the years. You know, we received something like, I'd say an average $50,000 worth of unsolicited donations every year to Betty's Place. You know, so my sense is that we're getting that without even asking for it. We put our hand out and said, this is what we're hoping for, and we hope that the funds will come. I guess, you know, it is people in the business community that certainly will have expertise that we don't. So looking for any kind of support. Any ways that the business community can promote the campaign. I'm hoping that the campaign will look something like, people running their own little events, if you like. So I'm willing to work, raise $40, donate it. Kids selling lemonade on the side of the street, whatever it is, like that, just like that ownership by the community of this cause is as much as important to be as what the dollars are. And things like what has given as well. That's our project, that's our quest, that's where we're up to.
We've got some questions around timelines of when we could potentially the new space be built and how much longer you need to be actively using the functioning space as it is right now.
So we know the tender closes next week. There will be another round next year. We didn't miss out on this one. If we're successful in this current round, then we should know the outcome by the end of the year, which means that build can start and start. So I expect it would probably be an 18-month at least period to sort of get it off the ground and build it and but that's kind of how we expect to raise the funds.
Are you planning on still using the current bed space as a building as well? So that needs to keep functioning. Yes. So with that, what sort of parameters and guidelines are in place around what sort of trades can come to do work? And do you need some sort of clearance, or do the women need to be not there at the time and having to work on facilitating that?
With a new build might be such a big issue, but you know, given the maintenance issues that go on.
That's what I'm thinking about, like to get the group, like you were saying, electrical.
Yes.
There's big collective, but like we could potentially get a working bee together and get a lot of kind of stuff done. But I'm trying to work out what are the logistics and the guidelines on making that happen. Either load all the women up and take them away. No, that's a serious question though, for their safety and everything like that. How would we go about getting that? Because some of those upgrades could be done so that it wouldn't be $20,000 a year. You could get it all done in one year.
Look, it's usually not an issue. It's only 5 families.
Yeah.
If you like, 5 women and their children. And it's usually about saying we've got maintenance happening on this day. You know, would you like us to take to the library, or just one day to visit? You're welcome to stay at home. There are going to be people on site. So it's usually something that we can manage. Yeah. And staff rooms. So yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions from Diane? For Diane, right?
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. We'll provide all these slides via email along with our upcoming events. I understand the time's ticking, so if you'd like to stick around and ask questions, you're more than welcome to. This room is free. But we will send out a list of events that are coming up. There are quite a few between now and the end of the year. One last thing, I'd just like to thank both Barry and Celeste as outgoing board members that made a very valuable contribution to the business community. And I don't think people quite understand how much work they've done in their roles on the board. So
Don't say that until after.
It's very important that it's acknowledged. So we should just give them a round of applause.